On Wednesday of the 12th of February, 2025, in center Lampung, Indonesia, it's about 4 p.m., and at PT Minggok, Indonesia, a timber mill in Terbangi Besar, the day's work is winding down. Inside, 19-year-old Adriancia, a seasonal laborer from East Lampung, is assigned to the peeling section, stripping bark from the logs. He is one of the young workers on the factory floor, as ordinary as any other worker here. Nearby, his co-worker, Dian Irawan, is cleaning around the running wood chipper machine. According to the official report, Dian saw Adriancia walk toward the chipper. Then, without warning, the machine suddenly stopped. Dian Irawan then checked for the cause at the upper part of the machine, but instead of finding ordinary mechanical failure, he found Adriancia inside the machine, with most of his body crushed, leaving only his head. In that instant, a routine workday turned into a big tragedy. Panic spreads through the workers. The chipper is shut down immediately. Factory management calls the police, and officers arrive quickly, joining forensic teams to secure the scene. Yellow tape is strung around the machine. The area goes eerily quiet. Adriancia's body is carefully carried out and taken to the local hospital, RSUD Demang Sepulau Raya, for examination. And as you can see from this footage, his condition was so bad. The next morning, company officials address the press. Ramauli Marbun, the HR head of PT Minggok Indonesia, insists it was a tragic accident. She notes that Adriancia had only been working for about 2 months as a contract worker. Marbun says he'd only worked here for 2 months. This is purely an accident. She adds that the company has helped with the evacuation, also covering the costs of the funeral and the Islamic memorial tradition, or tahlilan, for 40 days, and affirms that the mill has safety or the K3 procedures in place, even though I doubt it. At home in Lampung, Adriancia's family mourns. His aunt, Masnona, is grieving. Speaking to a journalist, she says, "I couldn't bear to see it." She implores the company and the police to investigate fully to find out how such a young life could end this way. He was just 19 years old, technically an adult, but still a youth with dreams cut short. His death raises questions about young workers in Indonesia. Even younger children work in tough conditions. Many of these young people balance survival with school or education. They start in jobs like Adriancia had, but too often without full training or safety gear. His story reminds us that behind every accident is a young life at stake, too young to pay the ultimate price for a paycheck. In March 1999, 23-year-old Fan Man Yi, a hostess at a Hong Kong nightclub, disappeared from her home in Lai Yu Estate, Kwai Chung. She had a past debt with Chan Man Lok, a 34-year-old triad member and nightclub cashier, which Chan claimed had grown to about 20,000 Hong Kong dollars, roughly 2,560 US dollars. Chan enlisted 2 younger gang members, 27 years old Leung Shingcho and 21 years old Leung Wai Lun, whom he called his big brothers in triad hierarchy. A 14-year-old girl, Lau Ming Fong, the girlfriend of one of the men, also the involved in this case. The trio abducted Fawn on the 17th of March, 1999, and drove her to a squalid flat at 31 Granville Road in Sim Sha Tsui. I give you a brief background first, to get you to know how sad and painful the death in this case was. Fan Man Yi was born in Shenzhen in 1976, and after being abandoned by her family, spent her childhood in a girls' orphanage in Hong Kong. At age 15, she was forced to leave the home and became homeless, eventually turning to drugs and street prostitution. By 1996, she was working in a Sham Shui Po brothel, or romance villa, and married one of her clients, Ng Chi Yuen. In November 1998, Fan gave birth to a son, and she vowed to change her life for her child's sake. She quit drugs and prostitution, became a nightclub hostess at Empress Karaoke, and left her abusive husband shortly before the crime. However, these changes left her income low and life precarious, and she struggled to support herself and her young son. That's why she had debt and also stole Chan Man Lok's wallet that eventually made the debt bigger. Back to the abduction. Over the next 4 weeks, she was kept prisoner under unforgivable conditions, deprived of sleep, beaten and tortured by the men. The cruelty was extreme, literally. On the very first night, one captor kicked Fan Man Yi more than 50 times to all parts of her body, counting aloud the times he kicked her. In another incident, the trip burned Fan's legs. They melted plastic with cigarette lighters and dripped it onto her feet, forcing her to smile despite the agonizing pain. Some sources said that chili sauce being rubbed into her open wounds as well. The men also raped her and forced her to consume bodily fluids, according to testimony. After about a month of torture, Fan Man Yi died of her injuries in mid-April 1999. The trio didn't stop there. They later dismembered her body and tried to hide the evidence. For example, they boiled the flesh to facilitate separation of the remains and discarding the pieces, though little of the corpse was ever recovered. The men then stuffed Fan's skull into the torso of a Hello Kitty mermaid plush toy, a popular children's character in Asia, sewing the doll closed so the head was hidden inside. This grotesque detail later gave the case its nickname, the Hello Kitty murder. The rest of Fan's body parts were packed into plastic bags and discarded as garbage across the city. Investigators eventually recovered pieces of muscle, internal organs, and the victim's single tooth from dumpsters in Sham Shui Po, Wan Chai, and Tai Kok Sue. By the end, only Fan's skull, one tooth, and some organs were found. The case might have gone completely undetected if not for the conscience of Lau Mingfong. In late May 1999, the 14-year-old was haunted by nightmares of the torture she had witnessed, went to a Yau Ma Tei police station, and reported her involvement in Fan's disappearance. The 3 losers eventually got caught. The trial of Chan, Lung Wai Lun, and Lung Xingqiu opened on the 20th of October 2000. The trio were found guilty of manslaughter and unlawful imprisonment, but not guilty of the murder charge because they denied intending to kill Fan. On the 6th of December 2000, Justice Peter Nguyen sentenced the 3 men to life imprisonment. That was the maximum penalty available for manslaughter in Hong Kong. On September 30th, 1999, 3 technicians at the JCO fuel processing facility in Tokaimura, Japan, accidentally caused a fatal accident by manually mixing of highly enriched uranium solution. In violation of approved procedures, they poured too much uranyl nitrate into a precipitation tank not designed for criticality control. At about 10:35 a.m., a self-sustaining chain reaction began, emitting intense radiation. Within seconds, Hisashi Auchi and his co-worker Masato Shinohara, who were closest to the tank, felt burning pain and nausea and evacuated to decontaminate. Auchi then vomited and lost consciousness. radiation alarms blared as a blue glow or the Cherenkov light was observed. The critical reaction continued periodically for about 20 hours before it could be stopped. Radiation assays estimated his whole body dose at roughly 17 sieverts, about 3 times the normally fatal threshold. For comparison, Shinohara's dose was approximately 10 sieverts and a third worker around 3 sieverts, and that was still a high dose, as it has 50% death rate within weeks if untreated. And again, Auchi has 17 sieverts. Immediately after exposure, Auchi was alert but suffered severe radiation burns. He collapsed and vomited, and his skin and eyes burned from the radiation. He was quickly transported via ambulance and airlift to a local hospital and then transferred to the University of Tokyo Hospital, which had specialized radiation facilities. Early tests confirmed catastrophic bone marrow aplasia. His white blood cell count was essentially 0, and chromosomes in all his cells were shattered, destroying his immune system. He was then isolated in a dedicated radiation ward. For the first 7 days, Hisashi Uchi stabilized in intensive care. He required a ventilator by day 3 as his lungs showed early radiation injury. Blood tests showed near total loss of bone marrow function. His blood cell production stopped. On about day 6 to 7, doctors performed a peripheral blood stem cell transplant using Auchi's sister as the donor. This procedure was intended to rebuild his blood-forming cells. His initial white cell counts rose briefly after the graft. Otherwise, he remained conscious, but heavily sedated and on intravenous nutrition, or simply, when doctors hook up a bag of liquid nutrients to your vein and feed you the essentials directly into your bloodstream. Around week 2 to 3, severe tissue damage emerged. Radiation burns began blistering over most of his body, especially chest, arms, and legs. Adhesive tapes and bandages literally tore off skin layers. His scalp and body hair fell out, nails sloughed off, and he developed large, moist wounds. In effect, his skin was shedding like a severe burn injury. He also began suffering profuse diarrhea, a sign of gastrointestinal radiation injury. By week 3, it was clear even donor stem cells were showing chromosomal damage, and his body could no longer make blood or clotting cells. In practical terms, this meant every injury could kill him, and every bacteria could cause deadly infection. He lost body weight and strength rapidly. Nurses recorded that ordinary care like turning, washing, and bandaging caused him to scream in pain. In mid-November, Auchi's condition worsened. He suffered at least 3 sudden heart stops around day 59. Each time he was resuscitated, but was left deeply blacked out. By day 60, his liver and kidney function had plummeted, and signs of multiple organ failure were evident. Morphine and other strong painkillers were used to ease his agony, but the treatments themselves often caused severe pain. On the night of December 21st, Auchi's body finally gave out. After his pulse and blood pressure fell sharply, doctors ceased resuscitation, in agreement with a newly written "Do Not Resuscitate" order, or DNR, which the family had agreed to on December 19th. Thankfully, Auchi's 83 days of hell finally ended. The accident exposed critical deficiencies in nuclear safety protocols, worker training, and emergency responses. This led to major changes in Japan's nuclear safety regulations, worker education, and operational procedures to prevent recurrence.